We're back on the SportsMax zone, talking track and field and talking the advent of athletes interrupting their formal education as teenagers to turn professional athletes. We have Leighton Levy in studio with us, and on Zoom we have former athletes Danielle Dowie and Trishana McGowan. McGowan, now a practicing journalist. And at the end of the previous segment, we were just talking about athletes being surrounded by a management team and people capable of leading these athletes in the correct path. Now we have seen, and we put the graphic up earlier on, with some of the athletes in the past who would have made that decision before, Usain Bolt among them. But Trishana and Danielle, let me say Danielle first. Not every athlete is Usain Bolt, and he has been a phenomenal athlete. There's no way you're going to use Usain Bolt as an example of someone who made a success out of turning pro at 18 years old, as Leighton had just, proffered the point that, there are exceptions. Now, as we said, Kerry Cahill, the tremendously talented sprint hurdler, who is 17 years old, turning pro, that decision came last week, and that is what triggered this discussion. Daniel, you've covered school sports in Jamaica for a while. Can you give us an assessment? You touched on it just now about Kerry Cahill and the Clayton sisters, suggesting that you feel, given their headspace and the sort of acumen that they've displayed as teenagers, you wouldn't worry too much about them?
No, not in terms of the discipline that it takes to survive on the professional level. The dedication, I don't worry about them partying or not training enough and all of that stuff. I think they have the affinity, the capacity to develop as a professional athlete, and so far they've both been associated with camps that I think that will be a good fit for their goals and their development.
Trishana, the general acceptance is that the groups that these athletes at the moment that we speak of, the groups they're involved in, are groups that would give people confidence that they're in good hands. But if you stretch the discussion beyond that, there is a lot of concern sometimes about the management team and the capability, both fiscally and out of genuine commitment and skill, that too is a part of the discussion and a part of what would make you say yes or no to a teenager turning pro, Trishana.
Yeah, I'm always going to be skeptic about our student athletes and athletes in general. I love them, I adore them. I wish every athlete could be rich. But with that said, we know it's not possible. And again, it's coming back, which I mentioned before, about the team that they have around them, and that includes where they go to train. I think that we have some of the best coaches here in Jamaica, and we are seeing the results. Now, as for the managers, I think that some can do better, some are getting better. And I made mention about it, panel, about where we are in 2022 and where we're going. Every information or, whatever is needed now compared to early 2000s and prior, it's now at the fingertips. So I hope that the decision making from a lot of our youngsters, it's not going to be difficult, I should say, to cut off a manager and say, oh, you're not working for me. Leave a club. We've seen a lot of that over the last couple of seasons. Athletes are leaving clubs. They're leaving MVP. Rochelle Clayton got a bronze medal on the track club, O'Keefe Stewart, and she left, and she's now at Elite Performance, where she made the final, got a personal best recently. We've seen athletes leaving Sprint Tech as well, the Maurice Wilson track club. So athletes have been leaving. Athletes have left racers. Johan Blake, I didn't know, back at the Titans International. So like I said, I think that where we are in terms of sports here, track and field, we are seeing these Gen Zs, millennials as well, in terms of our athletes and what they want. They know what they want. Don't think they don't know. And I am happy to see that they're now willing to say, this is not working for me. I am leaving, or I no longer want you a part of my team. I'm cutting ties. Sometimes it will work out. Sometimes it doesn't. But that's just life. You have to take a gamble. If you don't try, you don't know what will work for you as well.
Yeah, and Leighton, on the point of gambling, this is where I come back to. Because if an athlete, if you're guiding an athlete at the high school level, and the athlete's interest in going pro is to take care of the family, Leighton, then that's the wrong reason for going pro. Because it has to be that the athlete has the kind of talent where, ceteris paribus, all other conditions held constant, and you have luck with injuries, you can last the course of training and performance to make the investment in you, because it is an investment by the sponsors, worth the sponsors' while, and for you to then benefit from it. But if you're going because your mother is in a tough situation or your father is in a tough situation, you're going for the wrong reason, especially because, Leighton, even from the list we showed, and the list wasn't chosen scientifically, it was just random, only 2 names on that list, Bolt and Blake, well, Bolt is at a totally different level, but would have had riches that they've extracted, huge generational wealth in the case of Bolt. I mean, he'd probably need 2 or 3 lifetimes to spend all of his money. Blake has made extremely good money out of it, but I don't know who else on that list can say I'm set for life. And the problem is, the point I'm making is this. Daniel said, of course, correctly, that, you know, most people don't use their degrees after going to university. But university is not really about the degree. It's about learning how to do things, learning how to think, learning how to apply principles. Many people start businesses who didn't go to universities, but I'd wager that those who went to universities and learned how to set up business can run business better than those who didn't and learn otherwise.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot in it that you have to weigh and balance, and at the heart of this decision is the talent. Does this athlete have the talent that can help them to cut through? Because most who've made this leap have not gotten the riches that they thought existed at the other end.
Yeah, because the motivation is wrong. It's not where it should be, I should say. Because here's the thing. As I mentioned earlier, you know, sometimes it's the economic circumstance that dictates whether or not that professional contract is accepted or not. Because while $100,000 US might seem like big money, in the context of life, it's not, because it runs out just like that. When you choose to go to college, for example, regardless of the degree, you get that experience. You interact with people who guide you, can put forward pieces of information that you find useful over time. So that experience, because look at it, Cherokee Young just went pro after 2 years of college. You know, and many athletes do that.
Yes.
You know, but the reality is that that experience that she would have had those 2 years at Texas A&M would have guided her decision in a way in which she says, okay, fine, I've had 2 years of college, maybe I go pro, and maybe I can go back to school because I only have so many credits to graduate. And then that then puts her in a position to say, okay, if it doesn't work out, I can, I mean, most athletes don't, when they go on scholarship, they don't come back to Jamaica. So they can probably get into a situation in the US or in the UK where they can get a job that will then take care of their basic needs and allow them to build a new career. So it's not necessarily about the degree, it's about the experience and the life experience that teaches you how to be a better manager of your life and of your finances. And the reality is this, and I said this before, but in a different context. Not very many athletes seek these scholarships and sponsorships because they want to go to the Olympics or the World Championships. It's just to change your situation, right? So if you see where an opportunity arises, where if I can do well at track and feel I can get a scholarship to university, I can probably get to stay in the US. I can probably change my entire life and fight for my family. I mean, I can't tell you how many athletes have told me this personally, that just getting into the United States and being able to stay there and then eventually build a life and bring their families up, that's your primary motivation. So going pro has all these different nuances to it that is not necessarily designed for them to become the best athlete in the world, because that was never their motivation to begin with.
Yeah. And Daniel, if I may come to you, the emphasis that this panel has put on support group is critical, because we know that there have been talented athletes who've been victimized by having idiots around them, thieves around them. I said idiots, I should have said dunces, around them who really have damaged their prospects. I put you in the seat, Daniel, of having a talented youngster under your guidance at high school, this opportunity has come about, what are the 3 or 5 things that you want to discuss with that athlete and their parents or guardian before you give them the decision to make? And of course, you have to be as succinct as you can.
Well, first, I just want to say that the professional sports ecosystem is enough. It's set up in a way where you're going to get that life experience that you'll get if you enter the collegiate system or you go the educational route along with the NCAA system. So that putting that out there, you can learn, you can get that experience through doing professional sports and develop as a person. You can get better. And the motivation for the athletes to change their economic situation as a reason to go pro. Most people go to college because they want to better their life anyways. They're still looking to change their economic circumstance. So if they go pro now, they're doing that at a faster rate, earlier rate, and they can still get the education at the same time or a later date. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I thought that was in the 5 because that sounds like it's in that sounds like it's in the 5 because that's sound advice. But go on.
Okay, yes. So you said 5 for what?
Right, so that's 2. That's 2 gone already.
Okay. Yes, I don't remember the other 3. The other
But Danielle, can I ask you one question though? I mean, going pro and skipping college, and look, as I said, it's up to the individual athlete. But you would agree that going through a collegiate system where you then, the progression is gradual without the pressure of the expectation of a sponsor, because the sponsors do have these incremental requirements in their contracts. The college experience does allow you to gradually come to those realities by yourself as opposed to being under the pressure of a monetary expectation, doesn't it? So therefore, the opportunity to then progress from a 10, let's use 10-1 as the standard and say, okay, next year I can go 10 flat, next year I can go 999 or 990, without then having to worry about whether your contract is going to be renewed or not. Because if you don't make the progress because of injury, then you're not necessarily under the same kind of pressures at the collegiate level than should you have gone pro, where the possibility of the loss of your contract is a realism for the athlete who is not progressing the way their sponsors expect.
Well, that concern, you still have those concerns in the academic system. Like, you still have to maintain a standard. If you don't perform, you lose your scholarship. You still have those concerns. And in a lot of cases, you're an athlete first in the NCAA system. You just need to earn the minimum grade to compete, get a degree. And sometimes they don't even care what the degree is in. Sometimes they have generalized degrees like undergraduate studies or easy degree to pass. They have these things made up for athletes that are not academically inclined anyways. They try their best to get you to do the easiest programs there just so you can run in peace and not be ineligible and waste their money. Yeah. So the system is not as clean as you think. So maybe these athletes are aware of these things, because when I was fishing for schools, I was talking to athletes who went professional or athletes who were professional and athletes who were overseas at school and asking and feeling them out. And like Trish said, Gen Z, different generation, they look at things differently. They're not afraid to say, that does not serve me, I'm going to do what I want. So I'm here to support them on that decision. I just want to wish them well and say, make sure you have a good team, a good coach, and you have the discipline to do the work it takes to be successful and have a sustainable career.
To support what Danielle said, that, you know, some of these tertiary institutions especially bend over backwards to allow the athletes to pass through. Yeah. I remember in the mid-2000s at my beloved University of Technology, there was a program, Leighton, I'm sure you remember it, attached to the Faculty of Health and Applied Sciences called the Arts and Science of Sport. Let me tell you, I read that course outline and I said to myself, this is a sin. This is really university level, but that was made for the athletes to sit and to say that they passed, to maintain their status as students so that they could be athletes, student athletes. Trishana, I put this to you, my friend. The consideration for a high schooler with 1 year left in high school is different from a person who has completed the program of study at the secondary level, has an option to do tertiary studies, but then chooses at that point to go pro. So one instance, a high schooler who says, look, I'm cutting secondary school short to go pro, and another one who says, okay, I'm done with secondary school, I don't want to go to tertiary, I'm going pro. Different considerations in the two scenarios, even though both represent going pro early. So I guess what I'm getting at, Trishana, is that there is no universal truth that can be applied to going pro, and when the time is right, when the time is wrong, when you should wait, when you should hold, when you should fold, when you should go.
And like I started out saying, there is no one shoe fits all to the situation. And do you know that you have students who could have gone maybe to sixth form, just a regular student, but they opt to go to university or they go work at the call center. So I have no problem with our student athletes taking the opportunity to say, okay, I can go back, I'm choosing not to, I am going pro, or I am going back. I think Christopher Taylor, for example, the final year when he was injured, and many were saying, oh, he never need to come back to school, he shouldn't go back to school. He went back to school. Again, that was his decision, and I'm okay with you making your decision. And I'm going to state it again. We need to teach young people about consequences to actions. And the sooner we're educating them, we're talking about maturity, we're talking about grooming young adults. We have to allow them to make decisions and buck their toes. But they need a team around them that's going to support them and say, all right, you made that decision, it didn't work. Maybe you have to do this now my way. So I believe that the parents need to do a better job at how they guide young people, guide the student athletes, because there is no one shoe that fits all. And I personally believe that there is no wrong or bad decision if you choose to, leave high school early and become a professional athlete, or you choose to go back to school and compete another year. But like I started out saying, what it is that people want. We keep talking about champs burnout, and then the athletes decide, well, I'm going to go back at champs, and here we are. So again, like I said, I just believe that our Gen Zs, they are privy. They're privileged to the information of financial literacy, knowing how they can learn a craft, whether at Heart Trust, NTA, using their hands, whatever it is that they're good at, so that they can, if they're making $100,000 for the month, they're saying $10,000 is going towards this. So I think that these student athletes and the young athletes as well are in a better position than those before in late 2000s, early 2000s, and before.
Yes. Lance, I put this to you, my friend.
Yes.
Obviously, if you're going to make a mistake in life, 17 is a good time to do it, or 19. You have many years to correct any mistakes. As Trishana said, you can't really make a mistake there. You're so young, you have all the time in the world. But I want to say this to you, Lance. Again, this is why I was deliberate in talking about comparing other sports to track and field at the top of this discussion, because for me as a parent, it's a no-brainer if my teenager is prodigiously gifted as a basketballer or footballer or in tennis or golf, to send them pro, because even if they fail, they'll fall on millions, Leighton Levy. Nice. Track and field, different kettle of fish, and that's where the apprehension and perhaps even stronger than that, Lance, the fear comes in.
Yeah, but you use the term there, George, prodigiously gifted.
Yes.
No, you'd have to define that, because a lot of our athletes are very talented, but not necessarily prodigiously gifted.
So Usain Bolt was prodigiously gifted.
So that's what I'm
Johan
saying.
Blake was prodigiously gifted.
So
Kobe was
several
prodigiously
times
gifted.
in this discussion, we heard from Trishana and Danielle, the word gamble was used, that it is a gamble at 17 or 18 to decide to go pro. And I would want to suggest, to build on the point that you just made, where you referenced the NBA and the stars in the US sports, but to bring it even closer home, shifting away from track and field to football, where Ricardo Gardner, at 16, 17 years old, was influenced by the Brazilian coach René Simões, who actually went to Ricardo Gardner's mom and influenced her to forget about school for Ricardo Gardner, because in this context, he thought that Bibi Gardner was prodigiously gifted at his age, and there was a future for him to be successful as a professional footballer. Now, as we have discussed before, football offers a lot more in the financial sense than track and field would. But I want to suggest here that this is a gamble, and there have not been any other Ricardo Gardners since 1998.
That's the point.
Since 1998.
Not a single one. Not one. A single
because
one.
He was brought by Bolton for £1 million.
Yes, Colin Todd did.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm saying that the percentage of success for athletes making a decision like this is so low that it should help to make the decision.
And that's the point I'm making.
Yes, yes.
That's the point I'm making.
And this is why I said, because all it takes is one injury, and then what do you do next?
Yeah. Panel, we've exhausted our time. I want to thank you very much, Danielle. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you very much, Trishana. Always good talking to both of you ladies. And we'll talk again.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
Thank you.
Good. So
Yeah.
you realize, though, that even in the marketing, and I've looked at this so many times,
Yes.
the big stars in track and field, how advertisers, sponsors make their money back. You are limited. I mean, you have to have an extraordinary talent like Bolt and an extraordinary personality like Bolt in the same body to really cash in as an advertiser, because most of these track and field athletes, they don't have that. And then track and field is not a global sport.
Not anymore.
So, whereas you will be in Thailand, Lance and Leighton, you will see Annika Sorenstam and Michelle Wee, who both play golf. Many people wouldn't connect with the Annika Sorenstam if I didn't say golf, because they say, who that?
Yeah.
The three of us know who that is, because she was huge in golf. Michelle Wee never won anything of note as a senior, but was huge, made millions, billboards all over the world, everywhere. Yeah? Because of the profile of the sport they play. The track and field stars, even if you're the best star in track and field, and you're an American, Noah Lyles, Leighton Levy, walks in a mall in Florida. Nobody knows who he is. That's a problem. How does an advertiser cash in on that? So that again gives you a sense of the scale of the sport and the risks if you make a bad decision. The gamble.
Yeah.
And, but you know, you're young, so you can gamble and lose.
And to go back to the point about golf, there are some golfers who never won a tournament in their entire careers, and they earn like $5 million a year.
But
that's what a track and field athlete could earn for their entire
lifetime. Could. But again, look at this. Tennis. How many majors did Sharapova win?
7 or 5?
6 or 7.
I don't know.
I think it was 5.
Yeah, it wasn't that many.
And Serena won 20 plus. And up to the time Sharapova was active, she was rivaling Serena and making money out of the game.
She was out earning her.
But that's the point I'm making. So it's profile of sport. So if you're gambling for that, sure, at 13 years old, Chase Levy is going to play. What sport do you want Chase to play?
I don't know.
NBA.
Coding.
He's going to be tall. He's going to be tall. Chase Levy's son can go and play basketball at 13 years old if he wants. Because even if he fails, he'll be falling on a bunch of money.
You remember Serena went pro when she was what, 14?
Was about, was
14.
It 15, 14?
Yeah, 14.
Yeah.
14.
Well, Venus, right.
Venus was older.
Yeah.
But you do a sports career.
But the reward, that's what
the rewards
the
are
risk
significant.
reward.
Yeah.
There you go.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but the Williams sisters were always prodigiously
gifted. Prodigiously gifted. There's no doubt about it.
It's about risk and reward. And in track and field, the reward is not really worth the risk sometimes.
No. Back with more on the SportsMax Zone after this. Thank you, Leighton.
Take it easy, guys.
Yeah, brother.
Good.